So our next presenter is Taylor Ludich from ADHS. She is actually our in our heat response team. So she will be going over the rising temperatures, rising solutions, Arizona's collaborative response to extreme heat. So Taylor, whenever you're ready, feel free to turn on your camera and share your screen.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, yeah, we can hear you.
All right. Let's share screen.
All right, awesome. Looks good.
Yeah, okay, fabulous. Um, Let me do something real quick on my end. Sorry about this, everyone. Thank you. Okay, so I'm sure we're all used to working on multiple screens, and of course, when I'm presenting, that's when technology gets to be a little tricky. Come Okay. All right. Well, hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be presenting to you all today. My presentation is Rising Temperatures, Rising Solutions, Arizona's Collaborative Response to Extreme Heat. And if it's okay, I'm going to turn off my camera while I present, so that way you don't have to watch me again, looking at multiple screens. All right. Um, so Arizona is known for its sunny climate and hot summers. Arizona is home to three of the sunniest cities in the United States: Phoenix, Tucson, and Yuma. And on average, a person living in Arizona will experience more than 300 days of sun every year. So, this warm climate and diverse ecosystem, um, and the landmarks within Arizona welcome visitors from all over the world. Um, with that heat that drives people to visit, there's also a lot of dangers that come with it. We can't change the temperature, but we can change how we respond to the dangers of heat. So during this presentation, I'll highlight some cross-collaborative interventions utilized to respond to extreme heat. We'll look at extreme heat in Arizona, Arizona's heat preparedness strategies, heat-related illnesses, at-risk populations, cooling centers and resources, technology and innovation, data and mapping tools, and future directions. So first, heat versus extreme heat. Distinguishing Arizona's heat from extreme heat is a concern that has real life impacts on Arizonans. Extreme heat is defined as a period of 2 to 3 days of high heat with temperatures above 90 degrees. But in Arizona, we call that summer. We know to expect high temperatures in the summer months, and we enjoy the brief reprieve in fall and winter. But this period of reprieve is becoming shorter, and there are rising occurrences of extreme heat events, which can result in more heat-related illnesses, fatalities, particularly if people and communities are unprepared. Heat-related deaths and illnesses are preventable, but heat is the #1 weather-related killer in Arizona. So as Arizona grows and attracts more industry, tourism opportunity, how do we prepare and mitigate the effects of extreme heat? So taking a look at extreme heat in Arizona, July 2023 was the hottest month ever recorded for 14 out of 15 counties, and the second hottest for one, which was Navajo. For those of us living in Arizona in 2023, we remember the news announcing unprecedented heat and record-breaking summer temperatures. And Arizona experienced 73 days over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, June 30th to July 30th, broke record for the most days in a row with temperatures over 110, which was 31 days in a row. And it was safe to say that all of Arizona was confronted with these extreme temperatures. And unfortunately, these trends continued in 2024, not only in Arizona, but also globally. According to a NASA analysis of global daily temperatures, July 22nd, 2024 was the hottest day on record. July 21st and July 23rd of this year also exceeded the previous daily record set in July 2023. Daily global temperatures values for the years 1980 to 1922 are shown in white in this graph here. And values for the year 2023 are shown in pink. Values from 2024 through June are shown in red. And the daily global temperature values from July 1st to July 23rd are shown in purple. So although the graph is small on the screen, we can see a large spike in global temperatures in 2023 and 2024. Phoenix set a new record with 113 consecutive days of temperatures at or above 100 degrees, surpassing the previous record of 76 days. Arizona had the warmest average daytime temperatures, as well as the warmest overnight low temperatures. Observed warming trends and projections indicate that some counties in Arizona may experience temperature increases of up to 4.5 degrees Fahrenheit above current levels by 2060. And as a result, nearly half of the days each year could exceed 100 degrees. The most significant temperature changes are expected in the state's more rural areas. So as heat waves are increasing in frequency and duration, those living in Arizona are seeing the consequences. So extreme heat presents a myriad of public health safety, ecologic, and economic concerns. Here we have what extreme heat looks like. Honeybees are having to find new places to build their hives. and they found refuge in a saguaro cactus. We have flight delays, um, first responders preparing for extreme heat, tire blowouts, shoes melting. We have cooling centers as well. And I'm sure people have seen videos of people frying an egg on the sidewalk or baking cookies in their car. And although those examples are maybe a little bit more lighthearted, it does show the extent of how heat is shaping the way that Arizonans are living. So with that being said, Arizona recognized decades ago that um, the need to organize was becoming more and more important around responding to heat. So luckily in 2023, when we were initially facing those record-breaking temperatures, we had a foundation to build upon. So some highlights here. We have ADHS published the first Arizona Climate and Health Adaptation Plan. ADHS and the National Weather Service, Arizona State University, and University of Arizona began annual extreme heat planning workshops. Nature Conservancy launches Nature's Cooling System program. Cooling center evaluation efforts were being done in multiple counties. And in 2023, the governor declared a state of emergency for heat and an executive order, along with ADHS, convened statewide summit to inform heat preparedness plan. So, faced with the unrelenting heat in 2023, and after 30 consecutive days of excessive heat warnings in Coconino, Maricopa, and Pinal counties in August of 2023, Governor Katie Hobbs declared the state of emergency to support local heat relief efforts. In addition to the declaration, Governor Hobbs also signed an executive order to mobilize state resources and instruct state agencies to develop a comprehensive plan to address extreme heat in the years ahead. ADHS held a summit that brought experts and stakeholders from various sectors, including state, county, and city government agencies, tribal nations, universities, healthcare providers, and nonprofits together to develop recommendations to protect Arizona communities from the growing threats of extreme heat. These recommendations provided an action plan to reduce heat-related illness and fatalities and to prepare Arizona for prolonged heat periods in the coming years. The findings from the summit were shared with the governor's office, and in March of 2024, Governor Hobbs' office released the Extreme Heat Preparedness Plan alongside ADHS's release of the summit findings, ADHS recommendations, and findings for the Arizona Extreme Heat Preparedness Plan. A few initiatives from the governor's Extreme Heat Preparedness Plan are proposing policy changes and legislative proposals to build future heat resiliency, identifying resource needs across the state, as well as potential funds, opening more cooling centers and heat relief facilities throughout the state, and also formalizing and centralizing networks for cooling centers. Through these initiatives, Dr. Eugene Lavar's position as the nation's first statewide chief heat officer was created to oversee the implementation of the plan, and my position at ADHS was created to assist in these efforts. Implementing the ADHS recommendations and findings plan required sustained cross-agency and cross-sector collaboration. To accomplish this, we used the framework to share information. That's this little graph at the top. The Office of Resiliency convened the Interagency Resiliency Forum, which comprised of state agency leaders, private sector, and community-based partners who focused on preparing for extreme heat events and other resiliency efforts. We have the Arizona Heat Preparedness Network, an all-partner working group, which was established as a component of the Interagency Resiliency Forum. This group consisted of all of the work group members from the 6 work groups listed here, and any other member organization that wanted to stay informed about heat relief activities in the state. The network ensures statewide interests are incorporated into all activities to build statewide capacity and ensure robust input from tribal and local governments and cross-sector stakeholders. The ADHS recommendations and findings plan identified these 12 recommendations listed here as well, which aimed at reaching for overarching goals, drive heat relief activities, reduce heat-related illness and death, prepare for extreme heat, and foster innovative solutions. These recommendations were divided among the work groups: data to enhance heat resiliency, communicating to promote heat resiliency, heat relief coordination, building a strong infrastructure, and sustainability policy and innovation. During each meeting, activities were discussed, brainstormed, and actioned. And my role as heat relief coordinator was to lead the work group meetings. Meetings were conducted throughout the summer, and consistent feedback and input gathered from the meetings informed and directed extreme heat response efforts. Another victory for the work group meetings was the diverse representation. We had over 100 participants from all sectors and locations across the state attend, which was really crucial. Oh, apologies, I just saw that note. I'll try to speak a little bit louder as well. Having diverse input and having input from our tribal partners and rural areas in Arizona was it was just crucial to get that input since they are most vulnerable to fluctuating temperatures in Arizona. Um, and yeah, so here we'll take a look at the effects of extreme heat in 2023. Um, so we had 4,298 people in Arizona visit the emergency department for heat-related illness. Approximately 68% of the heat-related illness emergency department visits were males. Um, Most occurred within Maricopa, Pima, and Pinal counties. 59% of heat-related cases occurred among non-Hispanic whites and 26% among Hispanics. 45% of the heat-related illness cases are seen in 20 to 44 years of age. And over 21% of the heat-related illness cases had cardiovascular disease as a comorbidity. And really interesting, we found that among the listed activities, over 52% of the heat-related illness cases involved engaging in recreational activities. The inpatient admissions and hospitalizations, we had 1,322 people admitted for heat-related illness. The 35% of the heat-related illness cases are 45 to 64 years of age. So we see a slight increase there. And 66% of those cases had cardiovascular disease as a comorbidity. And also 40% involved engaging in recreational activities. So all of that is really important for us to keep in mind as we're planning for 2024. And then the summary of heat-related deaths in 2023, we saw 990 heat-related deaths occur in Arizona. Around 65% occurred in Maricopa. 3 out of every 4 deaths were males. And over 69% of the Arizona residents who died of heat-related illness during 2023 lived in the state for 20 plus years. So we often thought that those who died of heat were new to the area or that they hadn't acclimated to high temperatures. But with that information, we were able to kind of switch our mindset and our approach to how we deliver heat communications. So that was a really significant statistic for us for 2024. So translating extreme heat into risk and action. Um, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, released the heat risk tool nationwide in April of 2024. The tool was developed in 2013 as a prototype for California and was expanded to the Western United States in 2017. So we had some familiarity with it, but it wasn't used broadly within the news, and people were still getting used to the heat risk tool and its application. Um, The heat risk provides a quick view of potentially impactful heat conditions over the upcoming 7 days based on unusual heat patterns and humidity, which is represented by overnight low temperatures. The heat risk is complementary to the official National Weather Service watch warning advisory program that is meant to provide continuously available heat risk guidance for those who are making policy decisions, and also for heat sensitive populations who need to take actions um, at levels that may be below current National Weather Service heat product levels. Um, so during Arizona's hottest months, the National Weather Service issued alerts to notify the public when unusually hot temperature was expected. And those alerts were intended to raise awareness and prevent heat illness and death. Um, so both tools working in tandem really provided a comprehensive view of what heat was going to look like, not only within the next 7 days, but also more uh, more immediate. So, to promote the heat risk and expand the reach of the National Weather Service messaging, ADHS sent out weekly emails to public health and preparedness uh, officials throughout the state. The emails contained heat response activation tiers, which were developed using EMS data, National Weather Service heat warnings, and also took into consideration if multiple emergencies were occurring within the county. This year, we saw a lot of wildfires, and there were also some power outage incidents. So that's when that tier 1C, multiple emergencies occurring simultaneously, was really helpful for public health officials to adjust not only to heat, but also to manage resources and the um, assist within those different responses. Um, so also the tiers were, well, if we take a look at tier 1 here, we labeled that as the cautionary period, which was reached when the National Weather Service had issued heat warnings. And the suggestions for response were uh, planning to extend heat relief center hours, assessing resource inventory and restocking, and that next level up, Tier 1B, exceptional heat event, which that was reached when the National Weather Service had issued excessive heat warnings for more than 2 days. And when EMS data was incorporated to capture heat health outcomes for the area. So suggestions for response within that tier were elevated to extending communications, media release, possible action, additional alerts, and also provide guidelines to healthcare facilities to prepare for a possible influx of heat-related illnesses. Something that was really great as well is our work group members directly assisted in drafting and finalizing these messages, which ensured that the information would assist in their efforts, it would make sense, and that it would have a direct impact in guiding them in their response efforts. So communicating heat to the public, as we know, Arizona is no stranger to the heat. A lot of people know what to expect. They know it's hot. They get it. So how do we effectively communicate the dangers of heat without people tuning out or brushing it off? So going back to that statistic of heat-related deaths of Arizona residents for more than 20 years, how do we reach people who have lived in Arizona, and how do we reach them and encourage them to take precautions? So the work group members spent many meetings reviewing heat messages, standardizing key points, tailoring messages for certain populations, devising outreach strategies, social media posts, and supplemental resources and links. We also made and updated these flyers showing the stages of heat-related illness. Since it is preventable, how can we inform people of what proper hydration looks like, so that way they're not receiving information once they're already dehydrated? How do we prevent even that, people from getting to even that step? And also translating the materials into multiple languages. What languages are spoken within different areas of Arizona? So we captured that information as well. So with those toolkits and standardized messaging, a benefit of standardizing the messaging was also to focus on the key points, so that way people weren't facing conflicting information. Um, so that helped as well. Um, so with the toolkits now, how do we disseminate that information effectively? Uh, we found that partnerships and connection are essential. So we can create all of the flyers that we want, but if they're not reaching the right people, then they're not as effective. Um, and so even though anyone can be susceptible to heat-related illness, some populations are more sensitive or vulnerable to the heat. Uh, Seniors, young children, infants, people who work outside or in non-climate controlled conditions, the unhoused, and people with pre-existing medical conditions, and those on certain medications. So working with our partners at the Red Cross, um, utilizing Civic Roundtable, which is a new platform that is that allows people from all over the state to create an account, share updates, share information, share resources. So that was really helpful. We also created a campaign, Check on Your Neighbor, to promote connection. Right here we have our Cooltainer in Tucson, which is a cooling center that's in like shipping container. Maricopa County released their heat relief toolkit, which had digital signs and resources in different languages as well. And we also have our heat and medications information sheet for healthcare providers. So, which was created by ADHS and Poison Control, U of A, Pima County. And it was also encouraged, or we encouraged pharmacies to share this information with people picking up their prescriptions, because a lot of people didn't know that certain medications have an impact on how your body is able to respond to heat. And our Red Cross partners, they're really well versed in canvassing and also community engagement. So utilizing their strengths, and also they presented at work group meetings to share their insights and reference material for other nonprofits that were on the call, or other public health officials who were interested. Our cooltainers and also our cooling centers throughout the state were really in, well, they were a central place for those resources to also be handed out. So yeah, leveraging everybody's strengths, everybody's experience, we were able to get the toolkits and the messaging to the right people. So funding opportunities for heat response. Funding is always a need as the cost of saving lives through cooling centers and community initiatives is high. Heat relief supplies, so bottles of water, cooling towels, sunscreen, shade structures. I can't think of anything else, but really, heat relief supplies are, it's a long list. Um, Also, building maintenance for the location itself. With increased traffic comes increased wear and tear um, on the doors, on chairs, on everything that is available for people to use within the facility, and also just printing materials. Um, the cost of printing materials and translating materials, um, everything just it adds up. So funding is always a need. Um, and the governor did allocate funds for some statewide efforts and also funded the cooltainer that was in the previous slide, which those were positioned throughout the state. Funding for this year, ADHS applied for FEMA's Building Resilient Infrastructure in Communities, also known as the BRIC grant. We are coordinating with partners to assist in applying for the NIHH, NIHHIS Heat Tabletop Exercise Planning Challenge. And we're also supporting partners who are interested in applying for the Community Change Grant. In our work group meetings, we shared funding opportunities that were made available and asked those on the call if they had received any funding news. And as soon as we heard of possible opportunities, we shared them and offered assistance in applying. We also connected those on the call with organizations that assist in grant writing, because that can be new to nonprofits and just other organizations that are new to heat relief efforts. So we tried to reduce that barrier. And we also tried to connect with our tribal partners to assist in grant writing as well. Yeah. So diving into cooling centers a little bit more and heat relief locations. As I mentioned in a earlier slide, the counties have been working on collecting visitor surveys at their cooling center locations, which the feedback from the surveys informed the 2024 season. With this, we saw that in Maricopa County, 2 out of 3 visitors have an unstable residence. That instability can be caused by a multitude of factors, but um, the cost of utility bills was often mentioned. Um, just the general cost of rent and groceries um, can lead to that instability. 68% of visitors were aware of cooling centers, and the recommendation to increase awareness was by word of mouth, social media, TV, radio, common transportation methods to cooling centers. 54% walked. Um, Bus and light rail usage was 40%, and those that were able to drive at 20. So that 54% walking statistic was also really important because it highlighted the need for shaded um, shaded walkways. And it also informed how we promoted cooling centers. So if if we know that most people are going to be walking, we can adjust messaging to encourage people to take certain pathways to get to the location, kind of ensuring that it's safe, and again, that there's shade along the way. Um, and it also assisted us in how we provided directions to the cooling centers. Signage was a really important, or it was a big push this year, just to raise that level of awareness. And if we know that people are walking, then we can strategically put the signs in locations where they can be seen. Also, with the 20% walking, um, highlighting that a location has parking available would be a way to increase people utilizing cooling centers as a way to prevent heat-related deaths. Another really important source of information from this visitor survey was extending cooling center hours from 9 a.m. to what was 5 p.m., but extending it to 7 p.m. Just in, as I mentioned earlier, nighttime temperatures were really high this year. And even in 2023, when it wasn't record breaking, it was still warm. So having the center close at 5 wasn't as effective as it could have been. And extending it to 7, again, more people were able to utilize the center. With that, there was then an added cost to extending hours. So we had to find the funds to do that. Some locations were able to make that adjustment. Others, that's something that we'll be focusing heavily on in 2025. Yeah, so our main goal here was to take the lessons learned from the surveys and put it into action. So, as I mentioned, I got a little ahead of myself, but uh, we did see an increase of cooling center locations and heat relief locations throughout the state this year. Here is a location in Tucson that was able, nope, Tempe, that was able to extend their hours, and also they were open 7 days a week, which a lot of cooling center locations were only able to operate 5 days a week just because of staff, volunteers, and overall coordination. More of our promotional tools utilized QR codes, which was helpful for being able to put signs on buses or in other locations where you wouldn't be able to type out the entire URL. So something that was quick and accessible. We also promoted more supplemental resources alongside how to find a cooling center. So each location had its hours posted and the operation times, but we also included pet policies, and we're hoping to expand the services that are offered in addition to heat relief within our 2025 map. So including if, again, there is that parking available, if there's a family area, and if there's a pet area. So that way more people feel comfortable visiting cooling centers. Also within our promotional resources, we also want to highlight when to go to a cooling center. So if there's a power outage, if you aren't able to cool your home to less than or below 90 degrees, and if you're just feeling overheated and aren't able to cool yourself. So that was also included in our promotional resources, since cooling centers are an effective way to prevent heat-related illness and heat-related deaths. This year, we also launched the heat tier by county dashboard to promote or to just aid in the accessibility of data. So that was available on our website. We also have our heat-related illness dashboard, which was updated more frequently for partners to utilize as well. And our cooling center map integrated National Weather Service heat warnings as an overlay to show heat affected areas. Technology and innovations, our university partners were hard at work capturing heat data and demonstrating the effects of heat at an individual level. So here we have a, a truck that's outfitted with climate tracking instruments, which drove around to rural areas collecting uh, temperature information. Uh, yeah. And then Arizona State University. This is Andy, the model there, which is the world's first outdoor breathing, sweating, and walking thermal mannequin. So that's pretty great. Uh, Other examples of research done by our university partners, heat equity maps, shade equity mapping as well, to really increase the scope of information that we we have to inform the work that we do. So future directions, the future for Arizona is looking sunny and optimistic. 2024 highlighted Arizona's dedication to solving tough problems from a diverse community approach. We're always adapting and adjusting heat relief efforts with Arizonans at the center, ensuring meaningful and impactful change. And the Arizona Heat Preparedness Network is growing every day by bringing partners closer together. We grow, we elevate each other's strengths and voices, making us better equipped to tackle the next year's heat season. So, thank you all so much for listening. And again, it was great talking with you all today.
All right. Thank you so much, Taylor, for that presentation. It's great work that you guys are doing over there in the Heat team. I mean, I know that it's a relatively new program, but it is definitely saving lives. I mean, it is, heat is definitely a huge, huge concern in Arizona, and it's glad to see that it's finally getting the attention that it does deserve. So, we do have a few minutes to go over some questions before we do break for lunch. So we can go through these really quick, and then we will break. So the top question that we have right now is how are agricultural workers protected from extreme heat?
Yes, that's a great question. Um, so, something that I didn't mention in my slides, which I should have, is heat worker protection in PEMA was addressed. There was updated policy for protecting workers, but protecting workers from heat in the agriculture section or sector needs it needs more work. It needs more attention. That's something that we are bringing forward in the 2025 season. It's something that during this off season we'll be looking into and finding ways to support our agricultural workers, connecting them to um, trainings and just more support there.
I gotcha. Yeah, I know that there are some rules and stuff that are looking to be put in place and all that in regards to like workers' rights and worker safety. So that's good to hear. Not so much a question, but just more of a comment. So someone just wanted to shout out the work that Maricopa County has done in regards to heat that you highlighted in your presentation. And then there are two questions about the cooling centers. So, can the portable oxygen generators be plugged in at these cooling centers? So I'm
Can
assuming, yeah, that's more for, the individuals that have health complications and all that, and they do need either an oxygen tank or an oxygen generator.
Yeah, that's a great question. Most cooling centers have charging areas, not only for people's personal cell phones, but also for um, like any electric wheelchairs or um, also for oxygen assisted devices. So I would say for the most part, yes, although each location is different. Um, the purpose of a cooling center is to support that individual. So if there's a need or if there's a request, the location would accommodate as best they can. If not, they would connect that person to a site that would be able to assist.
Right, awesome. And then I do know that at least for most of the cooling centers, the map that is on the AZDHS website usually does have some kind of contact information for each of the centers. So I believe we might have enough time for just this one other question before we do break for lunch. So it does look like Michael Meek has already answered it for Lake Havasu, but are there any plans to expand where the cooling centers are located, such as like Lake Havasu or Bullhead City?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. We're always looking into expanding where cooling centers are located, and that's partnering with counties and nonprofits and really any facility that's willing and able to operate as a site. So that will require increased coordination, um, funding, but ASU is working on cooling center optimization maps to better inform where locations are placed to improve that accessibility for all people. And yeah, just going back to something you mentioned earlier, uh, each location does have that number um, listed on the map. So we recommend that people with pets call and confirm pet policies. And again, if there are any special accommodations, call um, before visiting that location.